Sex education classes are probably a dim, maybe even embarrassing memory for most of us. And creating babies is far more complicated than your sex education teacher likely led you to believe. But like we said before, education is your key to successful conception. Knowing the details of the reproductive systems will make it easier to understand how you and your doctors can do the utmost to help you conceive naturally or with the help of science. The female reproductive system is made up of many parts. Chief amongst these are the ovaries. A woman is born with all the eggs she will ever produce. They're stored in her 2 ovaries. At the time of ovulation, which occurs each month about 14 days before the onset of menstrual bleeding, 1 ovary matures an egg or ovum. This egg is eventually ovulated and picked up by one of the fallopian tubes. Every woman has 2 fallopian tubes. Tiny hair-like cilia move the egg down the tube where it waits to be fertilized. Each month, a woman is fertile only during the time an egg is available in one of the fallopian tubes. The vagina is the muscular tube that connects the woman's uterus to the outside. It is where a man places his penis during intercourse. Sperm swim up the cervix into the uterus to the fallopian tubes, looking for an egg. If the egg is fertilized, it moves down the fallopian tube to the uterus. The lining of the uterus is where the fertilized egg or embryo implants. The uterus becomes the home to the developing fetus. Now, probably the most important part of all this information for anyone trying to get pregnant is the timing of it all. The menstrual cycle is the time frame in which eggs mature and release from the ovaries. And while the length of it is different for every woman, it usually lasts approximately 28 days. If we choose an arbitrary day of the month, we can track the key events of the menstrual cycle and discuss their importance for your becoming pregnant. The menstrual cycle begins with the onset of menses, bleeding and loss of the tissue lining of the uterus, often called a woman's period. It usually lasts from 3 to 7 days. During menses, the level of estrogen and progesterone in the blood from the previous cycle begin to drop to their lowest levels. The body prepares for the new cycle when hormones stimulate several follicles, each containing an egg cell, to develop in the ovaries. All the follicles secrete estrogen, but typically only one will secrete and grow enough to release an egg. This follicle is known as the primary follicle. During the follicular phase, the egg in the primary follicle continues to develop and grow larger. Estrogen levels in the blood rise and the uterine lining gets thicker in preparation to receive a fertilized egg or embryo. By day 15, the high estrogen levels have signaled the brain that it's time to ovulate and massive amounts of luteinizing hormones is secreted. This surge lasts approximately 24 hours and then the egg is released from the follicle. The egg then travels into the fallopian tube where fertilization can take place. The egg can survive for about 12 to 24 hours after ovulation. The lining of the uterus at this point is at its thickest and is ready to receive a fertilized egg. This is the absolute best time for fertilization to occur. After this comes what is called the luteal phase. The egg is swept along by the gradual wave-like motions of the cilia or finger-like projections in the walls of the fallopian tube. If fertilization does not occur this time, the hormones fall back to their low, steady levels, and the unfertilized egg dissolves and passes out of the uterus when the next menses or bleeding begins. Estrogen and progesterone levels fall. Menses start and the uterine lining is shed. Everything ready for a new cycle to begin. But if fertilization occurs, the embryo implants itself in the lining of the uterus, estrogen and progesterone continue to be secreted, and pregnancy continues. So you can see with all these changes and processes going on in the body, just how important the timing of everything is. The time with the best chance of achieving pregnancy resulting by sexual intercourse is from 5 days before until 2 days after ovulation. In an average 28-day cycle, this lines up with the second week and the first half of the third week. Many people use test kits to try and get a more accurate prediction of their fertile days. Urine kits test for the surge of hormones that occurs before ovulation. Other methods track body temperature, cervical mucus, and even cervical position in order to predict ovulation. All of these are useful tools for your goal of becoming pregnant.